Good morning, internet folks. I hope you are doing well today. Let me know down in the comments. Today we are going to be editing 3 pictures of black bears that I managed to capture. I was a little bit nervous because black bears are pretty scary. Bears are pretty scary in general. So in this picture, we're pretty far away because you want to keep a safe distance. So the first thing we're going to do is probably crop in, which does suck because I'm not too sure what grabbed the focus, but our bears are a little bit soft. We're gonna try and separate the bear from the actual background. I want to crop in, like I said. I want to make the picture more punchy and have more separation between the actual subject and the background. And then I think we're gonna put up a subject mask and we're just gonna see what feels right in the moment. So if we go ahead and start, we're gonna go up to our cropping. I think this picture would look good in this kind of aspect. We're gonna zoom in till we get the desired crop. I think that's not too bad. So then done. We're gonna go ahead into our light. We're gonna drop the exposure a little bit. Contrast a little bit. Our highlights, we don't really have very many highlights. So it looks like just the grass is our highlights. And then if we bring up our shadows, that should be a lot of the bear. Our blacks, since this is a black bear, see, now it's a brown bear. You don't really want that. So we're gonna go ahead and make it an actual black bear again. And then we're gonna go into our color. I think we're gonna make this a warmer picture. I mean, man, I'm breaking a sweat. It's hot outside today, so it's a warmer picture. Or vibrance, we're gonna bring that up just a little bit. In our effects, let's do a little bit of dehazing, add a little bit of clarity in there. Vignetting, I am a sucker for vignetting. And then if we go into our masking, we're going to go into our select subject, and that is actually perfectly picking it out. I recently learned how to modify the masks. Reviewing some of my old edits, I realized that the mask wasn't precisely on the subject, and I didn't know how to fix it back then, but I'm a big believer in constant learning, so I've learned some new tricks. So we're gonna go into our light. We're gonna bring up the exposure of just the bear. Our highlights, you can see there's a little bit. I think we're gonna bring down our highlights just to kind of help with the actual color, because when the highlights were lifted, it seemed like it was more brown than a black bear. Our shadows, we're gonna lift up. Our blacks, let's bring the blacks down. Our whites, let's see what that does. Again, pretty much working on our highlights. So I don't want to leave that at 100. That looks pretty good. Maybe a bit more lift on the shadows. And then if we go into our color, I think this bear needs to cool down a little bit. That's gonna really help to separate the background from the bear. When the bear is a lot warmer than the background, he's just gonna stand out a lot more. And then I think we should go into our effects. Let's see, clarity. And then in our details, we're going to bring up the sharpening. I think I have one more trick that I want to try, and that is we're going to create another mask. We're going to do a subject mask. Now, I know you're saying, but we already have a subject mask, and here is where the fun part comes in. We go to this one, and then we're going to invert the mask. So now it's everything except for the bear. But as you can see, there is a little bit where the mask is not including his head. So I want to fix that. So now I can show you guys the new skill that I have acquired. We're going to click on the mask. We are going to do subtract from the mask. And this mask is our second mask that we've done. So we're going to pick that, and I'm gonna go ahead with the brush, and I'm gonna go ahead and use my Apple Pencil. So you're gonna wanna come in and choose the size of your brush. And then when that is done, you're just going to just color inside the lines. And that should be all of our bear not included in the background mask. So put the little Apple Pencil back, and now we are going to go for our light. Let's go ahead and darken the background. Not too much, because we want it to be believable, because you know, if you drop it down like this, that's not very believable at all. So just a little bit would be very okay. The highlights, let's drop the highlights down. The shadows, let's drop those back down. Our whites, I think that looks good. And our blacks, you can kind of you can tell that this was shot in the evening. Our color, like I said, we are gonna make that background warm. And then in our effects, I don't think we really need to double up on any of that, but I think that's done. And if we go ahead and look at the before versus the after, that is a very noticeable difference, at least in my humble opinion. All right, this is our second picture that we're going to do, and this was shot a little bit earlier in the day. You can see that it is a little bit exposed, and I like the background separation in our bear, and I think we're gonna go with a closer crop and bring up the shadows in his face and in his body so we can actually see the details. And again, we're gonna probably throw a couple masks in there and see where it takes us. So we are going to start with our crop. It's always a good place to start. Let's just start zooming in, and I feel like yeah, I like that where it's a close-up on him. So now we're going to go ahead and drop the exposure. Like I said, the exposure needs to come down. The highlights need to come down. Our shadows, we are going to bring those up, because our shadows are predominantly going to be in the bear. If we go into our color, let's bring up the temperature of everything. Our effects, I love adding clarity and dehaze. I don't know, it adds a little something to it. Especially the dehaze. The dehaze just seems to add like almost like a color to it. It's very, very nice. I enjoy what it does. And then in our picture and our details, we can throw a little bit of noise reduction on there. And then we're gonna go into our masking. We're gonna go ahead and go to our subject, and that's not too bad. That picks out pretty much everything. Click on the mask itself. We're gonna do subtract from mask, and we're going to go ahead and pick the brush. We're gonna come in here real quick, and let's see how big this is. That should be good. Let's just get rid of this because I don't want it to be edited along with it. And then we just have one more leaf here on the bottom, and then we're going to bring it up here, and then we're just going to color in this little plant here. And I think that looks pretty good. So now we're going to go into our light. We're going to go into our exposure. Let's see where we are. Raising the exposure there. Our highlights, if we bring those down, our shadows we should bring up. Our blacks, let's bring down the black so it's a black bear, not a brown bear. And then our whites we're going to bring up. And then in our colors, I think, like I've been doing with the others, let's make this bear a colder temperature rather than a warmer temperature. I think that's going to help a lot with separating the two of them. And then in our effects, let's go ahead and do the same, a little bit of dehazing, a little bit of clarity. You know I'm a big sucker for that. Let's go into our details. Let's bring down the noise and see how that's working out for us. And then we're gonna go ahead and click here and let's duplicate and invert. Perfect. So now we're working on just the background. And let's make the background a little bit darker. Let's pump up the contrast in the actual background. Our highlights, we're gonna drop that down again. Our shadows, let's drop them back down. Our whites, why not drop them down? Our blacks, let's make it the most blackest blacks you've ever seen. And then in our colors, let's warm it up a little bit, warm up that background. And then in our effects, let's go ahead and actually do the opposite. Let's take away some clarity and take away a little bit of dehaze. And then in detail, let's go ahead and drop the sharpness in it. And then our noise, let's go ahead and drop it. So it's just going to smooth everything out in the background. And then if we click done, this is our before and this is our after. It's just a lot more punchy and noticeable. And then this is our third and final picture for today. So we are going to raise up the shadows in the bear, make the bear more noticeable, crop in so that it's filling up the space better. We're going to work on the separation of the background from the subject via masks. So we're going to go ahead and start with the crop. I think a little bit of a zoom in would probably help. And I feel like that is a okay crop. And then if we are going to go into our mask, let's go ahead and create a subject mask just right off the bat. And it does appear that we're going to have to do quite a lot of subtracting. So again, we're going to be subtracting with the brush. We're going to be taking our pencil, we're zooming in here, and we will be taking out a lot. Alright, that was quite a lot of drawing actually. So we're gonna go ahead and put the pen back, and then we are going to go into our light. Let's bring up the exposure of the bear. Let's bring up the highlights, I'm thinking. No, we're gonna bring those down because it just seems to be messing with the plants in front of it. So now if we go to our shadows, we're gonna go ahead and bring those up so that we can just see our bear friend more. Our blacks, let's drop these blacks. And then in our colors, let's go ahead and make our bear a little bit colder. Not too cold, we don't want to send him into hibernation. But our effects, let's go ahead and add some dehaze to him, a little bit of clarity. In our details, let's go ahead and decrease some noise while also adding some sharpness to it. We are going to duplicate and invert the mask. I think I am gonna fix some of this face though. So we're going to subtract from this one with the brush. And again, take your Apple Pencil, zoom into the spots that you think should not have a mask on it. And there we go. So then we're gonna go ahead and put our pen back, and then now we're going to drop the exposure on the background. Not too much, otherwise it looks very fake. So just enough. Our highlights, let's go ahead and drop those. Our shadows, we can add a little bit more shadows to just the background. And our whites, if we darken that, that's going to take the lighter parts of our green and blues and bring them down. And now our blacks, let's go ahead and lower that just a little bit. Our color, if we warm it up, think that's gonna help. It's really making our bear very striking. And then we're going to take away some dehaze, take away some clarity in our details. Let's go ahead and remove the sharpness and decrease noise. After all of that masking, that this is going to be a pretty decent picture. So now if we go back to this one, I just want to see how our sharpness is. Can we get more in our face before it gets all weird? There we go. And you can see that there is some grass on his snout because he had been sticking that snoz right in the ground, eating grass for a while before I managed to get this picture. So now we are all done with the masks. See our before versus our after. I think that you will agree this is a drastically different picture, and that this is a very moody and punchy picture compared to what it was. I think that is a very big change. I hope that you all enjoyed today's video and maybe learned something. If you did, leave a like. Subscribe. Thank you for watching. If you want your wildlife or pet footage along with a shout out at the end of my videos, then send it to me. You can find that information down in the description. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you fine internet folks next Tuesday morning.